Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of Real Talk with Just for Girlfriends. We are live this month from Costa Rica. We're going to tell you a little bit about that. But first, I want to introduce our show. We're so excited. We have a special guest, Dr. Gena Jones. She's a financial strategist, and she's here to show us how we can create our legacy by design. But before we get into that, let's introduce ourselves. Hi, I'm Michelle Skinner. I am a board member for Just for Girlfriends, and I also run Just for Girlfriends social media platforms. So please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Real Talk with Just the number 4 Girlfriends, and you'll see that scrolling on the bottom of your screen. This month we have a special guest. Yes, Sherelle Fuller is here with us today. She is sitting in for Robin McFarland, who you usually see with us. And Sherelle, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello. I am Sherelle Fuller, and I am also director at Just for Girlfriends. And I am excited to be here today because we are here from Costa Rica.
Yes. Angelique, please.
I think we're in afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Angelique David. I am the founder and CEO of Just for Girlfriends. For those who are new and don't know what J4G is, our mission is to help women embrace self-care and self-preservation by providing unique and engaging and fun activities. If you've noticed, I've lost my voice a bit because we have been laughing and having so much fun in Costa Rica. I have been excited about the monkeys, which you will hear about, but really, we are all here for self-care. We started with the idea that women are often too busy taking care of everything and everyone that we forget to take care of ourselves. So annually, we go on a trip where it's just about self-care, and you'll hear more about that. So welcome, everybody have a seat, and let's have a good show.
Absolutely. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, let's talk about what's been on our mind. And I think it's the perfect time for our special guest, Sherelle Fuller. What have you been thinking about, girl?
So what's on my mind since I've been here in Costa Rica? You know, how we talk about self-care, and I'm like, am I really doing that? So coming here to Costa Rica, I'm trying to figure out how to take that. What can I take back with me, right? Because obviously we don't have the opportunity to be in Costa Rica on a daily basis. So
I wish.
Right. I know.
So I have the opportunity to my Just for Girlfriends and relaxation and all those things. It absolutely works for me. And that's one of the things I love about the Just for Girlfriends, is the fact that I can do this. But continuing that path of creating what we're able to have here, I ask everyone, are we really exercising self-care? So what can I take back with me, and what can I implement on my daily basis? And if I cannot say what that self-care is and how I am able to, what am I getting from that on a daily basis? Then maybe I'm not really doing that. So it's been an opportunity to reflect and think, and that's what's on my mind.
I love that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really love that. And welcome, Ursuline, and welcome, Carmela. But what I love about what you just said is it really brings home the point, the self-care looks different for everybody. So we had 30 plus members show up for our trip, maybe a little under 30, right around 30. And we curated an experience where there was some group activities and some alone activities. And we had one member that's just wanted, and here's a good picture of the island itself.
Right.
But we had one member that just said, I need to sit in the room and just relax and get caught up on work and get caught up on things. And that was self-care. So one of the things we talked about was self-care looks different for everybody else, for everyone. What's self-care to you might not be self-care to me. And there's no right or wrong answer, but it's what can you do? And like Sherelle said, how can you keep that with you at all times?
I love it too. And what it brought to mind also is that people throw around that term self-care a lot more than when J4G first started in 2017. I hear people talking about it, but are you really doing it? So I like that. And it's the reason why I love Just for Girlfriends, because we offer different types of experiences, so if something appeals to you, do it. If it doesn't, you don't have to. No judgment, no questions asked. And of course, these trips every year, which are always different. This year we went international, but I'm glad you mentioned that, because it has to be intentional. We have to think about this daily. But I don't know if any of you have been to Costa Rica, but we highly recommend the Andas Resort in
Guanacaste.
Guanacaste. Let's show you some pictures. You saw the island, the property. Let's put that back up. This is the property where we're staying. So you see that water? We have access to the beach. There's a bay right here, which is what you're looking at. The beach, there's a boat that can take you to the beach, or you can walk down to a different area of the beach. Next. We had all types of things that you can do, some curated and some on your own, where you can pick which activities you want to. This is a group of our members that did a wellness and mobility class right there on the beach. They did that probably 2 hours after we got off the plane. Right? They weren't wasting any time, but they absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Next.
You guys remember her?
Yes.
Yes.
She was from our cultural experience.
Yes.
Went to Hacienda de Vito, and I might have messed that up. So if anybody's watching from Costa Rica, I apologize. But there was a cultural experience where we did a river tour, a rum tasting, which the rum was extremely good, and a cultural experience. So this was part of the cultural experience where we really learned about the Costa Rican culture. It was fabulous.
Absolutely.
Next picture. Oh my gosh, this was a tour that we took in the Papagayo neighborhood. Absolutely stunning. We have all been to many islands. I think the consensus is that Costa Rica has to be one of the most, if not the most beautiful place that we have ever been. They have the rainforest, which is where our property, the Andas Resort, is located. We also have beachfront, and here is a picture of the bay. And there are homes, private homes built here, and luxury resorts. I'm telling you, absolutely amazing.
And as you can see, Michelle and I have the same clothes on because we just took this tour this morning.
That's right.
This was this morning, so we're fresh off this tour.
Right. Next. Oh my goodness. Angelique?
Yeah, this was an eagle, I believe, that we saw while on the tour. So Costa Rica is home to a lot of wildlife. It's not just the typical things you think of, but there are all types of different species of birds. There's deer. There's my favorite, which will come up in a minute. There's just lots of wildlife here. Because remember, it is a rainforest, so we are in their natural habitat. We are the foreigners. They are the wildlife. This is their home.
This is their home. And everywhere you look, you will see these different species of animals just almost at a stone's throw away.
Yeah.
The last picture.
Oh boy, I love this one.
This is my favorite.
So Angelique loves the monkeys, and today the monkeys were monkeying around at breakfast. So they joined us for breakfast.
This is their breakfast.
And they were getting up close and personal. What we learned at breakfast is that from the locals that they liked the sugar. They knew the sugar was in the container, and they were after it. So we had an opportunity to see one actually come into the restaurant and look for the sugar in the container, and then kind of give the waiter a side eye, like, where's the sugar?
Because he removed it. He knew better. He had taken the sugar out before.
He
really did. He looked at him like, I know you did not set this out here to tease me. It was so cute.
Yeah.
And very interesting.
I love the monkeys. That was my number one thing I wanted to do coming here, because monkey is my favorite animal. And so I was so excited to see all of the monkeys. There are 3 different species of monkeys on this island. This one here is the white-faced monkey. They also have the howler monkeys, which typically spend more time in the trees. And then there are 2 spider monkeys on the island who probably got here on accident. But we didn't get to see them because there are 2, and it's like finding a needle in a haystack. Mm-hmm. But we got to see lots of these monkeys monkeying around. It was really just a fabulous experience.
Yeah.
How far would you guys say we were away from this monkey? We were pretty close.
Let's say
we could have petted him.
We all jumped off the table when they were about to jump on the table.
Right. It brought friends.
Right.
It was a crew.
Looking for the sugar.
Right. So if you can't tell, it has been an amazing experience. And can't wait till next year. See
Yeah,
what's in store.
For those watching on the replay or in live, if you are interested in joining J4G and joining us on one of our fabulous trips, we have announced we're going to Santa Fe, New Mexico next year. Just go to Just for Girlfriends, www.justforgirlfriends.com. You can join, become a member, learn more about J4G, join our mailing list so that you get the registration for our next year activities and next year trip. So again, that's www.justforgirlfriends.com. Please join us.
And I just want to add that there are options. So you can join from anywhere around the United States.
Yeah.
There are options for you no matter where you live. So if this is something you need, which I think we all do, look into it and join us today.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so now that we have that out the way, let's get into our topic. I cannot wait for you to meet Dr. Gena Jones. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, ladies. I just got so caught up in the conversation about Costa Rica and the pictures and the whole self-care piece. And I love it for a couple reasons. Number one, I'm here to talk about legacy, obviously, but a lot of people don't realize that legacy is about a lot more than just money. It's about values as well as the things that you demonstrate in front of your children. So when we think about our daughters, when we demonstrate self-care and we demonstrate being intentional about taking care of ourselves and things like that, that goes a long way in their lives. So, that's something that may not really come to mind, but that's really what you're doing. And the second thing that I really enjoyed about the conversation is the fact that, you guys are going international. I talk to a lot of people about a lot of things, finance related, retirement related, legacy related, business related. And one of the things that is striking is that a lot of us think only in terms of the United States, and we forget that it's an entire world out there.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I'm very intentional about is seeing the world and making sure that my children see the world, so that they understand other cultures, so that they know that there's a lot of other types of people out there, and it's not just about us, and living in this country and doing the things that this country tells us to do or shows us, or even the things that we enjoy here. There's so many things just outside of our borders. And so I'm so glad that you guys are traveling internationally, and bringing that to your members so that they could begin to think internationally and, desire to travel internationally and see those monkeys and, see those beautiful garbs that everybody is wearing in that particular country. So those two things, are really going far. Even though you guys might not have even, thought of it in those terms. So
thank you, Gena.
Thank you.
I hope to see you on next year's trip, Gena. Thank you.
Oh, look, I was searching the Andaz resort, so I'm gonna have to do a little research, in Costa Rica, and then report back, of course.
Right.
That's how it goes. But I'm here today to talk about legacy because one of the other things that I talk to all these people about, business, life, making money, blah, blah, blah. Nobody is talking about legacy. Nobody is talking about creating their legacy plan, what their succession plan is for their business or anything. Everybody is just talking about right now and what's in the moment. And so what we're doing when we do that is we miss the opportunity to give the next generation some elevation. And so what that means is that every generation has to start from zero because we haven't been intentional about giving them a step up. And especially for women, unfortunately, over 74% of women don't have a legacy plan. Now, the role of the woman in legacy creation has shifted greatly in the last 50 years. So that's not really something traditionally we've been responsible for or talked about. But the truth is that we control most of the wealth in the household. And now we're moving toward controlling a lot of the wealth in the business world, even though I believe it wasn't until 1989 that a woman could get a business loan without a man signing for her. Wow. So, So we've come a long way. So now we have to embrace the responsibility of being intentional and taking the steps to create a legacy. Now, Did you say something?
I said, absolutely.
Yeah, and so a lot of people, and I just want to ask you guys, or anybody who's watching, I just want to know, why do you think that women or certain communities just really don't create legacy plans, or it's not a priority, or sometimes it's not even thought about?
I think that a lot of us are in survival mode.
Yeah.
You're in survival mode. You're not thinking about tomorrow or even say 10 years from now. You're like, how am I going to do the things I need to do tomorrow? You know what I mean? I think that's a big thing. So that's why I'm glad you're here. I want you to show people or tell people how they can take small steps and that can make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because one of the things that there are a few myths, several myths out there. One is that you have to be a millionaire to leave a legacy, or you have to be very wealthy, or you have to own real estate. And that's just not true. Everything is relative. So if in your life you believe that $10,000 is a lot of money, 50,000, 100,000, a million, whatever it is, it's all relative. So even that person who just gets that $10,000 life insurance policy to leave to their son or daughter, to even just put a down payment on a home, or even to just buy a vehicle, well, what you've done is you've given them that step up. Even the $10,000, that's very meaningful. And what that does also is that creates a situation where they don't have to pay interest on that. It's a situation where they get that $10,000 tax free. And so all of those small things really can add up. But another thing is that legacy planning can be very simple, and then it can also be very complex. But the point is that you have to do something. And that's just from a financial perspective. But if we think about more basic things like guardians for our children, things like if something happens to you, who's going to make those healthcare decisions? So if you haven't said it, then what you're asking for is a court battle between your family, your friends, the people who care about you, because everybody might not be on the same page. And so it's kind of like a built-in oven for conflict, when all you had to do was say, hey, if something happens to me, I'd like this person to be the guardian of my child. If something happens to me, I have this policy or this account or whatever, and I'd like for this person to be the power of attorney over that and to distribute it and take care of this, that, or the other. It's really that simple. If something happens to me, and not even that I've passed away, but I'm just incapacitated, I'm sick, I'm whatever, I'm under medication or under a treatment, and I just can't make those decisions. So I'll need to appoint this person to make these healthcare decisions, this person to have access to my bank accounts to pay my mortgage, make sure that my house doesn't go into foreclosure if I become ill and I'm unable to do it. So it's things like that that are very simple, that are a part of legacy and that are very important, that people just kind of wrap this legacy plan up into this ball, whereas the only way in is to be a millionaire or to own all these properties or to do all these things. No, first of all, legacy is really about life. It's about living your best life, creating your best legacy, and giving that to the next generation so that they don't have to just start from scratch every single time. Because a lot of times go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think, and sorry for interrupting, I think that what you just said is so important. We just were, as we've been here, like I said, we had lots of our members, and I think we all have examples of families where a family member has died, and it's actually caused stress. And caused a breakup of the family. And we had one of our members that shared that she had a family member pass away, and there's been discontention. I mean, there's been discontent in the family, and there's people that aren't speaking to each other. So to your point, when you have, while you're living, when you put your plans down, then it's very clear what you want to happen, and you don't have to worry about your family members being upset, not talking to each other. Uncle don't agree with auntie. You don't have to worry about any of that, because you've already told everybody what you want to happen.
And I love what you're saying, because a lot of times what happens is that people don't realize this gives you the opportunity to put what you have in the people's hands that you want to have it.
Yeah.
And regardless if you're not a millionaire, but you've worked hard for that home you have and that $50,000,
That's right.
this gives you an opportunity to put it in the person's hands that you would like to have that, or be responsible for the family.
Sure.
Absolutely. So when you say, we're talking about, okay, these are the steps we want you to take. Can you talk about that a little more? Like, is it a formal document? Do you have to go see someone in particular? How much does something like that cost? Can you let people know that?
Because I think a lot of people feel like they can't afford to even put a plan in place.
Absolutely.
So how does that happen?
Yeah. So, like I said, plans can be from simple to complex, depending on what the assets are. But on a very basic level, an attorney is the person who will be putting that plan together. I am an attorney. I am a CPA. And these are things that I do for people on the personal level as well as on the business level, giving them a succession plan so that, it's like they've worked their whole lives for this business. And just because they're gone doesn't mean that the business has to fail. The business can continue to feed the family and educate the kids and all those things if you take the steps. Now, back to answer your question about what are the steps? It's intimidating. It's big. I don't know what it is. First of all, I don't want to admit that I'm going to die. So to do anything in that direction is just a whole nother thing. So to make it simple, you get an attorney involved, and basically you let them know what it is that your wishes are, what it is that you have, what it is you'd like to leave with who. And then we draft documents that are legally binding. And one of the things that people also need to know is that, if I say, okay, if I tell my cousin, oh, I'm gonna leave you my car, or I want you to have this amount of money if I'm not here, it means nothing if it's not documented and executed. And what you're doing when you don't set those things up is that you're just kind of asking to pay attorney's fees and to get the court involved. And that's not something that anybody wants, even beyond the family infighting. Like, nobody wants to be in court for months fighting over anything. And so that's really one of the impetus to really get this done. And so the steps, that's pretty much the beginning steps. And they just take whatever your desires are and suggest the best tools to use to achieve whatever your legacy goals are. But one of the things that you said about, working hard for the house and having that $50,000, my goal is always to not only have, the value or the equity in the house or the $50,000, but to position yourself now to grow it so that it's $500,000, so that equity is accessible tax-free. And so a lot of the concepts, the basic concepts that we think about, like, for example, sometimes people are upset because they've paid more tax than maybe a billionaire has paid. Well, that's just because the billionaire has implemented the tax laws that are on the books, and we haven't. And so that's kind of the gap that I'd like to close, because it's so many things that we can do in so many ways that we can, first of all, stop paying so much tax while we're living, which is a benefit also, as far as our legacy plan, but stop paying so much tax when we're living. Stop paying so much interest while you're living. If we do some things now, we could live, pretty much tax-free and interest-free. And then that's the legacy we leave to our kids, is tax-free and interest-free. And so if you think about the concept of compounding, and if you think about whatever your tax rate is, if you think about just not paying that and having that money to grow every year, then just think about the legacy you could potentially leave for multiple generations, because that is what is not necessarily taught to us in our community, but that is the standard for a lot of other communities, and which is why they get to go so far. And what appears to, they start out kind of with a running start. And it's just because someone was intentional in the previous generation and was able to leave them whatever it was. It could be, like you said, that home that they worked hard for, that cash, but also what they left them was that mindset of legacy creation, that mindset of, it's not just about me right now, it's about what can I do for tomorrow. So those are just some of the things that we need to think about when we think about designing our legacy. Because I will tell you something, if you don't design your legacy, the state will make all the decisions for you.
Absolutely.
And
So,
you
Dr.
might
Gena, you mentioned there are things that can be done for tax shelters for not paying tax. Can you give us just like 2 examples of tax shelter ideas that you've used with some of your clients?
Well, one of the things, and like I said, all of it is relative. So it just kind of depends on where you are. But on a more basic level, I would say really leveraging insurance policies is going to be huge. That is a investment with a return that you won't see in the stock market. You're not going to see that in crypto. You're not going to see that anywhere really, except for investing in the insurance policies. And then, maybe on the other end of that spectrum, maybe your real estate investment, if you invest in real estate in certain ways. And that's because with certain tools, you can pass that along essentially tax free. And there are other things that you could put, other assets you could put into certain tools that you can essentially pass tax free. So what I can tell you is that the tax rate for estates and for trusts is very high. It's 40%. So if that's something that you can avoid, then you're up 40% already. So those are just like on both ends of the spectrum, one thing, but also on the more basic level, utilizing your business more intentionally now and making some plans for legacy later is another way that you could really avoid or lower your taxes and also lower the amount of interest that you pay. So those are just a few examples
Sure.
on the spectrum. And so when we talk about, again, people feeling like, oh, I need this or I need that, I have to be rich or whatever to create this legacy. I think a lot of times if we focus on starting small, for example, thinking about what can we do now? Like if somebody is thinking, I don't really make that much money, how can I really start thinking about a legacy? Well, I would say, why don't you start thinking about how to stretch the dollar? Like how to reduce the stress that you may be feeling. Like you said, we're just struggling. We're just trying to make it till tomorrow. Well, let's think about why we're struggling and what types of things we can do to kind of minimize that. And so some of the more simple things that come into mind is really using a budget. A budget is a tool that is not designed to say, oh, you can't do this or you can't spend that. It's really designed to make you see what you're actually doing. Because a lot of times our fear and our discomfort and our stress comes from not knowing. We don't know, like, how much is this going to cost? How much is that? How much we're going to make? Where if we have a budget, we kind of already have an idea of everything that's going to come in, like written in front of us. Like, have you ever just thought about something and it's just kind of like in the back of your mind, but then when you write it down, it's just different?
Yeah.
Yes.
So money is the same way. It's like you kind of know how much your paycheck is. You kind of know the revenue from your business monthly. You kind of know what you spend. But when you start writing it down, a lot of times what people realize is that in their mind, they're spending the same money multiple times. And it's just because, it's just an amount. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll use this for that. And then they forgot about that first thing they're going to use it for. And then the amount is still in their mind. It's like, okay, I'm going to use this for that. Well, you just spent that same $500 for that.
Yeah.
I mean, just because it's not written down and it's just kind of floating around there. So using a budget can be a really great tool to help you really be comfortable and understand what the numbers are so that you're not really in that position where you're struggling or you're trying to do something, make $1 out of 15 cents because you already knew from the budget that, you were kind of short ahead of time. So now you can do some things maybe to close that gap and not to find yourself in that same position the following month and after that. So those are just a couple things you could do as far as easy things. Also,
when you say that, it reminds me of when you're trying to diet and they say put a food journal together so you don't forget about the food you've eaten. So,
that's the same thing. Right.
Yeah. It's all the same.
It's all the same.
It's funny when I a budget, it was like, I'm like, did we talked about the monkey still in the sugar cane. I was like, is somebody coming? Somebody else's hand has been in here because I know I didn't spend that. So looking at it, you get an awakening.
Yeah.
It helps you discipline yourself. That's what I find. And sometimes I hate to even do it because I know I'm gonna have to be more disciplined and follow the plan. But it's right. It's the first step if you're going to look at how am I spending my money, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and then redirecting those funds to some of these tax shelters or a way to pass your legacy on with as little tax as possible.
Yeah, and even just something as simple as just saying, okay, I'm going to make sure that I have investment, in my budget, and maybe that investment, let's just say $200 a week or $100 a week. Maybe what you're really saying is that maybe I won't go out to eat every week, or I'm not going to go out to eat 3 times a week. I'm just going to go once a week, and then that other $200, I'm gonna make sure I invest that every week or something like that. So it's not to be, punitive. It's just to get a reality, like this is actually what I'm spending. And when you look at it, sometimes it's like, wow, I spent that much.
Right.
Because I sit down with a lot of people at tax time and they're like, I made how much money? What happened to it? And I'm like, look, I don't know. So
we can talk about that later, right now.
Yeah. And they're so serious. They're so serious because the money just came in and it went, and it came in and went, and it came in and went. And so unless you're intentional about saying, okay, this came in and this is what I'm spending it on, instead of setting up all of those recurring charges and this and that and the other, where it's just coming in and going out, coming in and going out, and you don't have a clue, really knowing what's going on can be very helpful. And then just realizing that, the way to get ahead is going to be either to increase the amount of money that comes in or decrease the amount of money that's going out. So it's just 2 sides to that coin, and whichever one you're more comfortable with, is the way to expand that margin where you can invest in your legacy and you can make investments and start, having some cash to plan for tomorrow. So those are the things that I would say. Now just to ask you guys, do you think that building wealth is important?
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm really big on this because, to your point, right at the beginning, we're kind of going full circle, especially in our community. I think that we don't do enough of this. So what happens is the next generation kind of starts off in the hole, where we see other cultures, their next generation is starting off ahead. And so it's really hard to get ahead if you're always starting in the hole. But think about your next generation's life, and it's a generational change. When you can set them up, and we're not worried about going to college, paying for college or buying that first house or student debts. But when you can give a young person a clean slate, generational change starts happening.
Right then.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about that because like Angelique was saying, it's just not on enough people's mind. So that's why I'm glad that we're offering this information. We have Deborah Oliver tuning in from Alabama. Karen Brooks, she's singing us eye facts. Yeah, and George Peach, let us know where you're tuning in from. But yeah, our audience is from all over the country. So this is a huge first step in at least just putting it on people's minds.
Yeah, I think so. And also what we're doing is not only putting it in people's minds, but when we take the steps to do it, we are breaking generational cycles and we're creating new habits in the new generation. So a lot of people are, have the mindset or thought that, my mother worked 10 jobs, so I'm gonna work 10 jobs and my kids are gonna work 10 jobs. Exactly. But the mindset is a little bit distorted because your mom probably worked 10 jobs so you wouldn't have to. So that if you just work, less and do more with what you have, that's probably, what she meant, not to have you to do that same thing.
Even though, sorry.
No, I was going to say, this brings to mind, I don't know how many of you watched The Fresh Prince, or it's called Bel-Air now on Peacock. Yeah. And there was a powerful scene between Will Smith and his biological dad. The story, Will Smith went to live with his aunt and uncle in Bel-Air who were, better off than what his bio family could do. And his father was trying to make him feel bad for using these resources. Will was telling his dad, I don't want to rely on basketball. I have all of these options. And he was like, if I were you, I wouldn't be taking a handout from anybody. I did this on my own, and you should too. But it's backwards. He has this opportunity to have this, build off of what his family has already done. And we should embrace that. That's nothing to shame a child for, or anyone for that matter.
What I was going to add, and it's probably could be a whole nother show, is those of us who I think have been successful in working those 10 jobs so our kids can't. I think sometimes we go the complete opposite, because we are so much not wanting them to have our lives that maybe we give them a little too much. And so it's a balance between giving them that and still instilling grit and hard work, even though they haven't had to do what we do. That's probably an entire another show, but I do think there's a balance there.
And I wanted to add, it's also important, we're talking about creating this legacy and understanding it. It's important to start teaching our kids now. It doesn't need to start when we put it in their hands or whomever you're leaving this to. Have them come along on the journey with you. Yeah. I think with my kids, by the time they were 2, they had bank accounts because I started, and their passport, there was a bank we used, still has that, so they can understand this process, because
that's right.
Education is also powerful. We can only get what people were able to give us.
That's right.
And so how do we take that and keep building on it? So I want them to go on this journey now about legacy now, and understanding money and how understanding what this does, because they're going to be the generation that have to carry it on once I give it to them.
Right. They're not going to learn it by osmosis. That's a great point.
Yeah. And so that's why, so I'm hosting a conference, and I'm telling people, it's called the Legacy Blueprint Conference. And I'm telling people to buy a ticket for yourself, but then buy a ticket for your child. Buy a ticket for your teenager, for your young adult child, because they need the financial tools now. Yeah. Like you said, not when they have $1 million in their hand, because when you give a fool $1 million, it's still a fool, and $1 million is gone. So, like, what did we really just do? So, but to your point, it is a fine line between giving the next generation a step up and spoiling a child. It's a fine line, but what makes it different is if you give them what I think maybe you wish you had, but also give them their financial education and the tools to say, okay, here is whatever, and here's how you treat it, and here's how you are a good steward over it. And it has nothing to do with spending it, because we have to teach our children to be wealth creators and not only wealth consumers. Because if they're only consuming, then there's no growth. There's nothing left for anybody else. So then what we just did is pour money into this crazy person who did not give any education or financial tools to. Right. And now they got your money. They went and just did something real crazy.
To the casino.
Right. Hey, you wish you could come back, put them in the headlock real quick. Wait a minute.
Right. And they're back. And they're back at the beginning. So all of that hard work, and they're back at the beginning.
And you're back.
Right. 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 But the point is to lift them up so they lift the next generation up. Right. And so on and so on. Because it's not about us, and it's really not about them. It's about stewardship and whatever we work hard for. Right. To elevate multiple generations. But like you said, we need not only the financial tools for ourselves and for our children, because it's okay if we're older and we're just not figuring it out. When you get the information, then you do better things. My mother always says, you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And it's just the truth. And so whatever we have, we give, but we also make sure we give the information, that we give the values, that, these are things that are instilled so that, whatever they do have, they'll treat it in a way to understand they're just a steward. They're just holding this stuff to grow it for the next generation. And that's how other communities and cultures really get ahead, because they understand that. They understand that it's not about them, and it's really about, that next generation coming up.
You mentioned a conference. When and where is that?
So the Legacy Blueprint Conference is November 9th, and it's at the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago. And we are not only working to help people create that legacy plan. Because like you said, what do I even do? Who do I even call? Like, what are the parts? I don't look, it's just too much, especially with all the other stuff on my to-do list. I can't figure this thing out. So what I've done is created this conference where we have every professional that you need to create an effective legacy plan. And that is attorneys, CPAs, financial planners, wealth managers, fiduciaries, bankers. Every single professional you need is going to be there to help you craft your legacy plan. Also, to build brilliant beneficiaries, because that's what it's about. So the young adults there, the teenagers there, we want to have a conversation about crypto. We want to have a conversation about non-traditional ways of thinking about things, because that's going to be the future, whether we love it or hate it, is what it is. And so those are the people, the professionals that, we need to start having these long-term relationships with.
Absolutely.
You need to have your financial planner on speed dial. Your kids need to know your financial planner. They need to know your attorney. If something happens to you, like anybody on this call, if something happened to them right like today, would somebody know who to pick up the phone and say, okay, such and such happened, where is the policies? Where's the key to this? I didn't know we had property in Texas. Like what, what I mean? Is there a roadmap? And if the answer is no, you need that legacy plan, which is one thing, but also you need to have a document that says where everything is. What's the password to my phone? What's, just basic things that we don't even think about, just to make things easier, the wealth transfer easier.
Sure.
I think, I was going to say, Dr. Gena, I think you hit on something else that happens along, and that's the fear, right? The fear of who do I trust as a financial planner. So that I think that may be something else that is in the back of people's mind. This is, as I said, this is mine. I've worked hard for it. So finding that financial planner and building that trust, that you hit on that, and even understanding in the family sometimes, who is it that I can trust that is going to be responsible for this? So understanding even how to select that financial planner and starting to build that trusting relationship is something that is probably important that you could touch on.
That's key, because I know every time my brokerage account goes down, I don't trust him anymore. Every time I say he's wrong, I tell my husband we need to look for somebody else. He's bad, and then if it goes up, I'm like, oh, he's pretty good. I guess he knows what he's doing.
It's rough out here. It is rough out here in the professional streets. I'm telling you. Let somebody have a high tax bill. It's all my fault. Now I called you 4 months. Wait, I called you 6 months ago and I told you we need to do some financial planning and some tax planning, because you were going to have a high tax bill because you have one every year, but you don't want to do the tax planning, but then you want your tax bill to go down. And so I'm the bad guy. And so I totally get that. And it's just funny because these professional streets is a mug. So definitely every time. Also, one of the things that I wanted to just kind of bring up is, that relationship between health and wealth and legacy. We're all aware of wealth gaps and income gaps and health gaps and this gap and that gap and all gaps. So legacy is a way to begin to fill that gap, because like you said, if I don't have to start in the hole or at zero, I'm already in a better position, and I'm in a better position mindset wise. I'm in a better position financially. So maybe I have more access. Maybe like somebody said a few minutes ago, I have more options. And maybe I've seen, my mother or my grandmother practice self-care. So I know what that is. I've seen them eat salad and fresh fruit and vegetables. And it's not just fried chicken and fried catfish and macaroni and cheese and spaghetti and, all the goodies that we told
in unison, these two said,
You know what I'm saying? The 10 pounds of sugar that's in those candy yams. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So just kind of changing those habits, and changing the financial piece, changing the health piece, the habits, the food, the self-care, all of that wellness combined with new financial thoughts and new financial actions, actually executing
Making a
some things
difference.
that create wealth and that allow us to build generational wealth, and then wrapping that up in a legacy plan where it's actually transferred and you're not giving a lot of it to the IRS and a lot of it to the state and a lot of it to the court just because you didn't take the time to create a piece of paper. We'll all be better. And that's all I want, is for all of us to be better. Because when all of us are better, when any one of us are better, all of us are better. Because it's not just our legacy plan that we have to focus on. It's our sisters. Because if something happens to her and she got 3 kids and they're gonna be looking at me, that's not what I want to be doing right now. But if she didn't say anything, what am I gonna do? It's gonna disrupt my life. And so I need to not only get my stuff together, but make sure she has hers together so that we can all live our best lives and make sure everybody is clear, because I don't want them kids. And so I just want you to know that.
I'm just saying, it is all interconnected, because
that's real life.
Yeah, exactly. If you have financial health, it will reduce stress, which will help your physical health. So financial well-being is real. And it really does spill over into your physical well-being.
And I think something else we could miss. You mentioned if my sister and I have to take her kids. I think the other thing we miss is that it may also mean that people that you're responsible for too are also impacted by this, because you are responsible for. Right.
Yeah, because now your stress levels go up.
Yep.
You just made your budget, because I told you to make your budget. You just made your budget. Now that's blown up.
You're right.
Because these extra 3 kids and feeding them and clothing them and educating them, and you were already a kid's Uber driver 3 nights a week. So now you gotta, also be responsible for whatever these other kids need. And so, it's just unfair to impose that upon somebody without, a discussion, when it's as easy as creating a legacy plan that not only addresses those situations, but allows you to elevate future generations and not stress everybody out around you trying to guess what you would have wanted and, what you would have thought. And if you wanted me to still let you give medicine, and if, you wanted them to pull the artificial, it's just too much.
Right. So Dr. Thomas, oh my gosh, you have started a conversation not only among us, but among our thousands of followers, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you being here. I will go into the chat and add information about your conference. Anybody watching now or on the replay, and if you're in the Chicago area or will be, make sure you attend the Legacy Bootcamp Conference. And
bring the Legacy Blueprint Conference. And I'm just gonna, I think there's a private chat. I'm just gonna copy it. I'm just gonna paste it here. So you have
that'd be great.
And I want to see everybody at the conference, because I'm from the south side of Chicago, and this is not something that we discuss around 79th Street, but it's something that we've all worked very hard, and now that we have more information, we need to share it, and we need to do the things we need to do to execute and elevate the future.
Right. And if you see one of us at the conference, please make sure you stop and say hello. We'd love to say hello to you.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now is this part of the show where we do our own little bit to save lives. Okay. This is Girl Talk. This is kind of a girl chat. Thank you. Okay, I'm ready. So this is kind of lengthy. I'm going to summarize, but we're going to try to help this sister out. Okay, so it's a young lady. She and her boyfriend are pretty serious. She said that her boyfriend went out of town. He has a dog. He asked her to come over and take care of his dog while she was out of town. She goes over. She hears the TV on in his bedroom. She goes in. There is a lady laying in the bed, and she's asking her, what's going on? What are you doing here? And she's like, oh, she goes to explain, your husband, is a good friend. We work together. He's always giving me advice about my marriage. I've had a problem with my husband. He said I could stay here while he was out of town. And while she was there, the husband FaceTimed the coworker, and she quickly was like, well, your wife is here,
The boyfriend
FaceTimed the coworker,
right.
And she answered and was like, oh, your wife is here. I told her that you were just helping me out for a little bit. She said the boyfriend then asked the coworker about the dog before she even asked about her. That might be a red flag. I don't know. So anyway, she kind of played it off, and went on about her way, but she felt a certain way about it. A couple of weeks later, she decides to, for lack of a better term, play some games. So she had a male friend of hers come hang out at her apartment on a day she knew her boyfriend was coming over, and she left out. The boyfriend came and saw this man actually knew it was a friend, but saw this man in his girlfriend's house. She comes in and he immediately breaks up with her and was like, "You're going to get somebody hurt. I'm out." And she's like, "Didn't you just do the same thing?" He didn't want to talk about it. He just walked out. So she's asking, who's wrong? Am I wrong for trying to give him a taste of his own medicine? Or is my boyfriend wrong for just like dropping me on the spot? Okay. And if you're listening, put it in the chat what you think. Sherelle, what do you think? Who's wrong with this situation?
Both of them.
Both of them. Why?
Yeah. I feel like he should have had a talk with his girlfriend that he was going to have somebody over. And you said in his bed, so I don't know how that works.
She was under some covers.
With co-workers in each other's bed, they ain't together. And then she's wrong because generally I found the male they're looking for a resolution. So it's done. I'm done with you. And whereas we want a resolution, but we don't want to get to it quickly sometimes, I think. So both of them are wrong in my opinion. If you're adults, you're not playing games.
Well, it's all too messy for me because I could barely even follow the story.
And I cut a lot out.
So it sounds really messy, and it sounds like they probably should not be together because you've got way too much going on. Relationships are supposed to be easy. Relationships are supposed to uplift you. Relationships are supposed to make you feel confident and secure and stable. And everything you just described was not easy, was not confident, was not stable, it was just too much. Sounds like from both of their perspective, they're better off not together and to move on and find other relationships.
I agree. I think from the story, hopefully they're pretty young. I think they're pretty young, and communication. We've heard this forever. Communication is key. So if he was out of town, so he wasn't spending time with his coworker, but you're right. He should have told his girlfriend, "Look, so-and-so is staying over." And especially if he knew the girlfriend was coming over, so he wasn't trying to hide it. But I think she shouldn't have been blindsided by the situation. And you're right. Why are you playing games? If that bothered you, you should have had a conversation. Now you don't have a man, so it really don't even matter, to be honest. That's why I said, who's wrong? Why does it matter, girl? He gone on doing his own thing, and you have to move on. But it didn't sound like that was a healthy relationship. So
no self-care there.
No self-care there. It's causing you to need self-care. Right. Absolutely. So that's what we have to say. Put in the comments if you think we got something wrong or if we missed the point. But if you need help, we're here for you. Let us know. Email us or go on our website, www.justforgirlfriends.com. There's a place when you sign up for our newsletter to add some comments, or hit us up on social media, either private message through Facebook or Instagram, both at just4girlfriends. And we may feature you on our next episode. So that's all that we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Lots of good information. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll make sure you have what you need. And we'll see you next month, fourth Monday.
Yeah, I hope everyone really comes and joins us either at the conference or really join J4G. We're in Costa Rica. We're going to be doing a lot more things, and we love to see you. I know we're ending a couple of minutes early because we're getting back to Costa Rica.
Right. Right. So everybody, have a good day. We will.